I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're talking to a terrific author by the name of Walter Hoge, DVM, and he brings his dual passions for storytelling and veterinary care to life in McEaster Valley. It is a thought-provoking parable about courage, selflessness, and the beauty of nature. Through the lens of a journey in the Sierra foothills with his dog, the author weaves a tale that explores themes of service and harmony with the natural world. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Mainspring Books for helping us put him in the spotlight today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing books. The links are below this interview. And be sure to download the Spotlight TV app, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Let's start out by talking about your inspiration to set the story of eastern McEaster Valley in the Sierra foothills and how that setting enhances the book's message.
Hey, well, probably what I should do is start and let everybody know that I was a practicing veterinarian I was in my 50th year when I retired this last end of February.
Mhm.
But it all started when I was a young child. I was the kind of person that, we talk about the hows, what do we do to grow up, and we go to school and do all these things we have to do, the hows we have to do in our lives to be where we get to. And I always had a lot of whys. My whys were mostly about nature. I love nature. My mother was raised on a ranch. My father was a medical doctor, and he knew a lot about things like that too. But I just really loved animals. In fact, my curiosity was such. I had actually a zoo at home. I slept with rats at night, my pet rats. I raised pigs. I raised cattle, horses, and all these type of things. And to give you kind of an example of my curiosity, I remember one time as I flooded our field, I caught a salamander that had gills on the side of its head.
Mhm.
And that intrigued me because I was thinking, why does he have gills on his head? Why do these tadpoles that I catch in the ditch and I put in my aquarium, they lose their gills, they grow legs, and they lose their tails and become frogs? But we call them mud dogs, do not do that. They always maintain their gills. But that was a curiosity that I had, and I carried with me from then on throughout my whole life. And of course, as I became a veterinarian, I had to keep doing more house, and I've got as older, I've had more times to do more of the whys. But the Eastern McEaster Valley came about two ways. One is we had five children, and they were within 5.5 years of each other as far as age. And I remember that oftentimes I'd come home late at night, get them up, get my wife mad at me, and we would do a little Disneyland song going around exercising, running around the house. And then they'd lay in bed with me and I'd tell stories. And some of the stories I told were a little bit about Mr. McEaster and his wife, Miss McEaster, in McEaster Valley. And what happened is my wife passed away just as my kids were leaving home. I found myself alone. I fortunately had work to keep me active and busy. And is it about 8 months after my wife passed away, I had what I call an out-of-body experience, and that I possibly even visited a parallel universe. Because what happened is one night, all of a sudden, I completely had I'd call it a spiritual experience, and I started writing about Eastern McEaster Valley. And I wrote it in about 2 days, 3 days. And I put it together, of course, I had to do some corrections and things like that. In those days, had spell checks were not very good and those things. But I put it together on 8.5 by 11 pages, and I sent it to my children for Easter. And I don't know if any of them read that story at all or anything, but what happened is that I remarried several years later, and one time we were going to access Memorial Day. We're going visiting grave sites. I happened to have that story in a car with me, and my wife read it to her mother. And she said, Rich, you need to make this into a book. I
Mhm.
said, yeah, right.
Mhm.
She kept bugging me until I did have Eastern McEaster Valley published.
Mhm.
And the interest in it is that, in fact, there's more interest about that book than four other ones that I've written. It's continually coming back with a lot of interest. But one thing that happened is a lot of individuals asked me, they said, is this a story for children or is it a story for adults? And as I matured throughout my life since that time I wrote that book, I realized that actually has more probably for me as an adult and has had more effect on my life than probably any other thing that's happened to me at that particular time. And so what I did is my interest after that was getting into, I always had science journals and things like that. I collected piles of these articles. I would write things oftentimes to friends or other people, and also try to find maybe a faith promoting scripture or something to go along with it, and always put something about myself in it. And the reason I did that is I thought my children aren't going to read a journal. I'd really like to let me tell who I was and not them think who I was and make up stories about me. So I was making up stories about me, and
Mhm.
that's how a lot of these things got written and accumulated. And and like I say, it had an effect on me because of the things that happened in McEaster Valley. To me, are very much like I think about like the Garden of Eden, because in
Mhm.
this place of McEaster Valley, the people there did not die. They were the best that they could be. And what they were doing is they were doing things for people on earth to celebrate Easter
Mhm.
and for people who celebrate the growing of the grass and the chickens and the ducklings and all the wonderful things that occur there, or the goodies that they were making there for the people, or to celebrate the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And that's what they were doing there. And all these different things, like, for example, they were using lasers, that I didn't even know what laser was when I wrote it in the book. They used to cut things and for energy. They also were using the rainbows for the coloring of the painting of things, or else to color Easter things and stuff like that for the kids and a lot of these different things like that. And that really got me going into writing other books. In fact, book three, the first 10 chapters, is about why I believe that I was in an out-of-body experience and visited a parallel universe, and I think it was close to where God resides. And so that's how Eastern McEaster Valley came up. And since it's been written, it's been put into a script called Second Chance, which includes that. A story that I had. It's been made into a screen play, and it's now being made into a screen trailer. So someday it may be actually in a film.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
that's
That's
kind of
quite
where I
a
got to where I was at that point.
well, that's a great backstory on the book. And like you said, this book is the genesis for other books as well. Tell us about your writing career.
Okay, well, I know the only thing I ever wrote as a practitioner was basically scripts for medication for my clients or writing up a chart, and I didn't do very well in English. I'm not a very good speller and things like that, but I have a vivid imagination, and a lot of the things that happened to me at my work and that I had made information about that and little stories I'd written, and I had uh, a technician that worked with me who was actually there longer than I was, and so she could verify my stories that I had. And so, what the books are basically about, I guess, I probably um, I, what what I usually have in my chapters in the book is, first of all, something will excite me and it gets my interest, and it's usually an animal or sometimes a plant thing that I read in the scientific literature, something new that's coming on board.
Hmm.
And then what I do is I get excited about that, and then I look into it and try to find out, is there a story behind it, that type of thing. And then, is there something of interest something of my life that I've experienced with it? And then also, is there some kind of a faith promoting something that goes with it that I can include in it?
Hmm.
And if you'd like me to, I can kind of give you an example.
Sure.
Uh, just recently, we lost President Jimmy Carter,
Mhm.
and I watched that funeral, and there was a song by oh, I can't think of his name, but it's Imagine, one of the Beatles,
Oh, yeah, John Lennon. Yep.
John, and he had that song sung. They had at his funeral and also his wife's, and it kind of bothered me a little bit because it really is a song. It's not about Christian things like he was in a lot of ways. It's actually a lot about, the perfect thing, without a God, and everybody's living in harmony, and kind of it's more of maybe a communist or socialist
Right.
type of a song.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of people
Anyway, I got looking
misconstrue
into
that.
that, and then it turned out that when I started reading about Jimmy Carter, that song was not the important thing. It's that there's a guano worm which it attacks people in Africa, and they get it from drinking bad water.
Mhm.
And this worm actually migrates through their body and comes down eventually over sometimes many years, and then it punctures a hole in the ankle or the leg,
Hmm.
and and that's the way it fertilizes the water so that they'll get more of it. Well, Jimmy Carter, after he was president, and he had the Carter Institute, and he did things with Habitat for Humanities and that.
Mhm.
He wanted to eliminate this worm, and through his efforts and then for filtering the water and doing things of education, almost have gotten rid of that worm. And when he had towards the end of his life, when he was placed under hospice care, he often asked if I would eliminate that worm. I'd like to eliminate that worm from mankind before I die.
Hmm.
And he almost did, but as I got into the research and everything with it, it turns out that that worm also gets animals in North America and other animals that gets into wild animals. So he never will get rid of it. But it was such a wonderful story, and I was able to tell about him and have a faith promoting some of his faith and promoting the experiences I could share in the story. So these are the kind of things I look for, or things that I because I can, and sometimes a little bit about, so and initially when I started writing the books, they were for my kids. I
Mhm.
want them to be, still know about their dad and read about it. And it's, kind of carried on from there. And I've had some success with the books, and I'm usually up at 4 o'clock in the morning did my study hall and I just really enjoy writing these things. There's so many exciting things about nature, and these things that nature has that we find out about are things that we can actually, well, most of those things that we get for our health care come from animals. In fact, just recently, if you look at TV, you'll see that there's a pen that they're advertising that you can inject in your leg, and it's supposed to help with diabetes, and also it's supposed to help you lose body weight, and also they think it helps with dementia. Well, that came from the venom of a Gila monster, and the Gila
Mhm.
monsters live in Arizona and places like that, and so but there's so many stories about what animals are doing that we find out that we're actually using for our own health care. So I'm just having a ball.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah, you have a limitless supply of material when it comes to dealing with nature and animals and inspiration. And this book is an example of that. It is called McEaster Valley. It's one of many books written by the doctor. We'll have the links under this interview.
Yeah,
But
and the
Easter,
books that I've written are all thoughts on my thoughts. The tales, Tales, that wag my tail, that wag. But anyway, but that's all of them have that title, and that way, thoughts on my thoughts. It can be anything.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's a broad
and so
title.
I just have a ball. I may be talking, talking about a comet somewhere, and then somewhere else I'm talking about a microorganism in a pond. So anyway,
Wonderful. Gives you free range. The book we
yes,
were
I'm
talking
having a
primarily
great
about.
time.
The
Yeah.
book we've been talking primarily about today is called McEaster Valley. It is a thought-provoking parable about courage, selflessness, and the beauty of nature through the lens of a journey in the Sierra foothills with his dog. The doctor explains a tale that explores themes of service and harmony with the natural world. Dedicated to his children, this poetic story offers a universal message about the profound richness of a life lived for others. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm not much of a speaker, but I had a good time. Thank you. You made it
Well,
good
you
for
did
me.
a great job. You're a wonderful speaker as well as a writer. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.